All right, welcome back to Off the Tap. This week is episode 41 or episode 10 of season 2, and we are doing Kronenbourg 1664. Almost said 1964 even though I was reading it right off of the page.
I was going to comment on the fact that you said Kronenbourg. I'm pretty sure that they pronounce the OURG as Berg, but I could be out of bounds. I don't
Well,
know.
I'm an American. I'm stupid. I'm not taking into account their culture at all like I should be, but it's spelled Kronenborg for me, so that's how I'll. But it's
Okay.
probably Kronenberg, and I'm a stupid American. So
I'm so that's fine. I'm a stupid American too, but I would say this. Um, Proud American, proud
proud, yeah.
regardless of intelligence level. But I'm super excited because you and I have had a conversation a lot about like I don't want to say stereotypical. All of them are respected in their own right, but stereotypical pilsners. And this for me, we've had previous conversations because I have already had this beer. They That's my favorite beer for reasons we'll get into later, but also this one for me personally is probably number 3 or 4 on the list of all-time favorite pilsner style like generic beers. When I think beer, this is the type of beer I think.
Yeah, that's what you were telling me whenever we were looking at them, and I was like, "Ooh, all right, we got to try it." Because I've had what was the other one that you brought over that one time? Uh,
Carlsberg?
yeah, that
Yeah.
one. You brought that one over, and you were like, "Man, you got to try this pilsner," and I loved it. So
That's my numero uno. I will say though, before we even get into it, like maybe it's just the way maybe I don't want to say 90s because that makes it seem super early, but like maybe the way the 90s were or like the early 2000s or just coming up as a kid, like whenever I think like everybody's like, "Oh, you take, you don't like beer at first." That's what everybody tells you, right? They're like, "Oh, you're going to drink it, you're not going to like it." Like
mhm.
in my mind, this is programmed as that experience for everyone. Like the first time you drink it, you're like, "Whew, that's a little abrasive." Like, I don't know how someone could love that. And then now I'm like, oh man, you know what I'm craving? It's this. And so, anyways, that's just interesting to me. Like, for me, it's that seed of you don't love it at first, and it's the stereotypical first beer that you grow to love and enjoy. In my mind, that's these styles of beer, and especially this one.
Yeah, I remember what everybody's saying, like back when you first start trying beer or whatever, that it's like a taste you acquire or whatever. And I remember the first beer I ever tasted was a Rollin' Rock, because that was what my dad drank, and so
Yeah.
that was the first beer I ever tasted, and I never once thought it was gross. I had
See,
put it to my lips, and I immediately was like, "This is delicious," and
so
and
I
that's not even one of my favorite beers anymore. So
So I agree. I also didn't have the issue with the taste of beer, but in my mind, I think like that's probably why people have that experience or why that's a cliche. I didn't experience that. Um, but I think a lot of people do. And it's these types of beers that they're experiencing in that moment. The other thing I was going to call out, I know you're going to probably get into the specifics on the beer, but it's 1664 by Kronenbourg. It is a French, or it's imported from France now, but that is where it originated. What I think is interesting, a lot of the Pilsners from this particular area, all of them are sold, whether they're imported or manufactured here now, in an 11.2 fluid ounce bottle, not a 12 ounce. And I don't know if that's a metric conversion or what that is, but it's weird. It doesn't seem like that much difference, but it is in the grand scheme of
I'm
things.
getting ripped off of my cows per fluid ounce here.
Yeah, so you look at the if you look at the stats, the
Mm.
CALs, the IBUs, the alcohol by I mean, I guess by volume it doesn't really matter, but yeah, they're cutting you by point 0.8, 8 tenths of an ounce is what we're losing each bottle, fellas.
You know what? I'm getting into the smell of it. I'm smelling the beer out of the bottle here.
Skunky.
And yeah, but when you were talking about how it's like that thought of you're not gonna like beer at first, right? This bottle smells the exact way that I think of beer smelling. You
Yes,
know what I
I'm
mean?
telling
Like
you.
that's exactly what it is.
When you drink it out of a pint, like again, I don't want to break into, we always wrap up the episode by where we would drink it, but like for me, it's what I think of in a pint. It's what I think of when it sours. It like when the smell of
Mm,
soured beer, like this is what I think of. But it's that super bitter, skunky, refreshing, crisp, enjoyable beverage.
yeah. I'm
And
okay. I'm gonna
anyway,
get
60.
into
Yeah,
it. You
go
can
ahead.
keep
Yeah, go
talking.
ahead. No, go ahead.
Man. Oh man. It's crisp,
See?
man. It's tasty. It's refreshing. I know it's dehydrating me, but I don't feel like it is.
Ooh, see, here's the
You
thing.
know what I mean?
Yes, because yes, they sneak up more than like American lagers or more like even
Mm.
compared to other things we drink. I think a lot of standard pilsners um have a tendency to creep up on you in the dehydration because you're like, wow, if it's this refreshing, how can it be dehydrating me? And it is.
Yeah, it is for sure. But oh
But
man, it
it's
doesn't taste like it at all. It tastes like it's just absolutely beautiful for your insides.
citrusy. I mean, a little bit. I don't want to define it that
Hmm.
way, but a little like citrusy. It's sharp. Also, too, I love. Ooh, first off, hey, first burp already, and I'm one sip
One
in,
sip in.
which is another thing that I love about these types of beers, and especially Kronenbourg. But also just beautiful bottle. I didn't pour it into a Pilsner. I mean, yeah, Pilsner glass today. Not because of my comments that were made last week about being showing favoritism towards one particular glass, but I didn't pour it in there.
If you didn't hear that, you got to listen to that.
Yeah, you guys can go back and understand why I have a guilty conscience. But um, beautiful bottle, and because it's French, it is very champagne like. I just connected those dots. Um,
Yes, that's a
but
nice
uh,
connection.
but anyways, yeah, standard green. Look at the
S-
froth, like at the back of the bottle, just perfect foam after one sip.
mhm.
I'm excited. I'm over excited. I'll shut up.
Yeah, no, it's a pretty standard bottle when I think of a pilsner
Yeah,
myself.
the
So
the green to protect from any further um I don't want to say rancidity, but skunkiness development. They're like, look, we put enough in there. We don't want UV messing with our stuff, degrading our stuff.
yeah, right, exactly. We can't have any outside contamination going on here.
No, no, no. We don't want it to go any further. Um,
It's actually a little funny that you mentioned it's like champagne or whatever, right? Because I was doing a little research on this because obviously it's from France. Um, so I don't really know a lot about it or anything. So I was looking it up and they use high quality. I don't know how to say this. I'm gonna butcher this as well, but it's spelled Strisselspalt hops, which
the
are
old strip salt,
considered
yeah.
the champagne of hops. It
Ooh.
says that on the website. So that was
So,
pretty interesting that you said that.
so real quickly, I was just kind of connecting the dots. There again, I'm the branding guy. I always give you guys the inlets on how I feel about their branding, and
Hmm.
I think it works if they are considered the champagne hops. And the bottle is very champagne-ish. But what's also funny though is like we're sitting here and this is an import for us, and I love it because it's my favorite style beer. But like, I wonder if over there this is like the high life of France. You
Right.
know?
We're raving about it. And they're like, they get a Miller Lite from over here and they're like, whoa. You know
I
what I
bet you
mean?
they're just like, if we were to ever have some type of established audience there, they're like, what idiots? Like,
Mm. They
seriously? Are
don't
they
even
drinking that
know.
trash?
They
What
don't
the?
even know, bro. This stuff's been around for 1664 because it's cheap as fuck. Yeah.
Yeah. We're giving it away. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure over there.
Yeah. So the more research I was doing though, because I was like, I wonder why it's called 1664. I wonder if there's some kind of like big, reason why or whatever. If something happened. Nope, it was just when the guy made it.
Yeah,
That's all
that's
it
what
was.
I was like, oh, what was there like a revolution going on there? This was the a
Yeah,
Renaissance period for them. Like it
this was
symbolizes breaking out,
it
but
was like the
no,
French Prohibition. This was the only thing they could get on the black market.
no,
No.
just when he came up with it. Also, not even specific. Just this is the year. But I guess
Yeah.
in 1664 they weren't keeping history all that well.
Well, I mean, and also, could you imagine the name of a beer being like August 21st, 1664?
Ah,
That'd be one
yes.
hell of a beer name.
You walk in, especially like somewhere you walk into a local bar or something, you're like, "Ooh, do you have the August 10th, 1664 on tap?" They're like, "No, seasonally it's out, whatever."
No, no, yeah, those don't come around until like mid-May, at
I
least.
just I just wish I'm fine with it because I enjoy the beer, but I do wish that it was cooler than just the year that it was brewed. Which now that I'm thinking about it, if you think in the grand scheme of things, like there's not a beer in the U.S. that existed in 1664.
No,
So
there's not.
this bad boy's been around for a hot minute.
But I don't think he, because it was just one dude. He graduated. This is just from their website, but he graduated master brewer and opened his first brewery. But I don't think he did a lot with it. Obviously, I mean it's 1664, so there's not like they were distributing it worldwide or anything. Regardless, but
Right, right.
nothing else really happened until 1850, which is when it moved to Kronenbourg, if you ask me. But
1850. So it just hung around as like a like
200 years as a local
as a
brewery.
town brew.
Yeah.
Wow. You
So
know
I
what?
mean, they stayed true to it. I don't know if maybe that was just the only. Again, it's a great beer. I'm not saying it's bad or anything. I'm just saying I wonder if they hung around and were able to stay alive for 200 years because they were the only brewery around the area. You know.
The other thing that I think about all the time is like I would say even in the States, like there's not a beer that's existed here so long that like the first iteration is probably drastically different from what we consume today. Like, yeah, there's gonna be
Oh
some
yeah.
variants. But I mean, even if you take Yingling or something, like I guarantee you what they were originally putting out is damn close to probably what we're consuming now. But some of the beers overseas that were like they were next to the bottle of wine that Jesus was serving, like those kind of
Huh.
beers. Like, do you think that there's no way that they've stayed true to like maybe the process has stayed fairly similar, but there's no way that like all of the little notes and like things that we talk about that we enjoy about them are exactly the same. You know what I mean? Like, there's no quality control that's that solid over thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah, it's like Jesus snapped his finger and made a barrel of wine, and then made a barrel of wine out of water, and then snapped his finger and made a barrel of 1664. You know
Yeah,
what I
exactly. Well,
mean?
I'm just saying, like between the original recipe and that small town and that dude's garage
Yeah.
or whatever they had back then, like their like wagon cart garages,
Yeah.
like they
Yeah.
there's no way that it's that close or it's exactly the same.
And so, okay, so 1850 is when they moved to Kronenberg. So 200 years before then. And then 35 years later in 1885 is when they started using the champagne of hops, the Strissel's
I
fault
see. So
hops.
so there's a change right there.
Right. So they changed hops. Uh, it says the hop's unique aroma creates a distinctive and refined taste. Yes, it does, my friend. It's
It
very
does.
good. A very good taste.
It's It's so interesting to me because, like, I guess we take hops for granted because most of the beers that we consume now are hopped. But like,
Mm.
there was a period of time when that wasn't the case. I'm gonna make a comparison. We're probably gonna make a couple of comparisons throughout this episode, but I want to make this comparison. When they started experimenting with different hops, like this is the champagne of hops. To me, it's very similar to like like in an old fashioned, there's different types of bitters, right? That render different styles of old fashions or different variations. And it's crazy to me that like somebody took something because a hop itself, like you're not just eating those. Like,
No.
nah, you know what I mean? Or like bitters, you're not just like, oh yeah, this is great. You're just like, oh, this is terrible. But in conjunction with a great spirit or in conjunction with a brewing process, makes things obviously as refreshing and delicious as a beer like 1664. It's just crazy that they would put those two pieces together. Not saying they had a lot of raw materials to deal with to make flavors with, but
Well, I
I don't
mean,
know. It's just very
yeah, it
interesting to me.
probably came down to a point where honestly, this is how I feel like beer was invented, right? Is they had all the ingredients from something else. Maybe they just had collected it along a path or something, and they forgot about it.
Hmm.
And then somebody came up to it like 6, 7 months later, and it was just this liquid, and they were like, "Oh, that smells bad," right? They're like, that's probably not good. And there was one brave guy in the village that was like, "Bro, I'm thirsty, man. I don't care.
Actually,
I'll try it." And he tried it and he got super messed up and everybody freaked out the first night. But then he woke up the next day and he was like, "Guys,
you're not
I
gonna
mean,
believe this.
you're not going to believe what I was doing last night. While all of y'all were sitting around the fire, I was somewhere else, bro. I was having a great time. I wasn't cold at all. In fact, I was so warm, I
I
slept
took my
outside.
clothes. So we
I slept
probably
with the
need to
horses, bro.
we probably need to do like a historical beer episode. I think we should do that. Even and we can pick. Here's what I say. I'm not making a commitment to it. I don't want to give any teasers to something that obviously I'm making up on the fly. But we should probably go back and do a historical beer episode, and we pick like three of our favorites that have been through the ringer thus far, so that it's not a new
Mm.
beer, but it's just us enjoying the epitome of our favorites along the way while we explain it. Because also, I think a lot of it, if I remember correctly, is no, people were like drinking water and they were dying because it was like terrible, and so because it was like contaminated and stuff, and they were like, hey, if we like these flowers aren't dying, like they stay good for a long time, we want to stay good for a long time. And so now that's probably not the story on hops, but yeah, it was just a lot of things rotting, and they were like, well, we can't let it go to waste, and so they got wasted, and that's why they call it that way.
Yeah. That
I
hey,
made up
that
that
nah,
piece made up that
uh,
piece of history, but
I don't know, but see, it is about as viable as my made up history.
possibly. So
Because you know
when
what? We don't really know what happened. We don't really know how it formed. Someone can say they know the history, and how beer, the origin of beer came around, or the origin of alcohol, but like, do we really know? What if that person wasn't
no,
the first person to do it?
I guarantee it had to have been accidental. I mean, but people were using it. I mean, I do know this for a fact. People were using it as currency. Like people were getting paid in it because, there is
Oh yeah.
much to our dismay nowadays, but like there is some calorie content to it. It does keep you content. And so like if you can pay people in beer and you can manufacture that, I guess we
Oh,
manufacture currency, but I digress.
I mean, it's a
Anyways,
drug. So it's
oh
a
yeah,
drug.
there you
It's
go.
just, I mean, it's not like a hard drug like cocaine or something, but I mean, it's a drug. It's like weed.
Yeah, I guess so. But I mean, I don't know if any period of time they were paying people in weed. Maybe they were. At least maybe not
I
here,
mean, I
but
think I think they do in Mexico sometimes, depending on
possibly.
your way of life, I guess. But
One other thing that I wanted to mention is like, so we talked a little bit about 1664, right? Being a valid, like when it was manufactured, like that's when it was made for the first time. But we thought it might have been some cool historical situation for France. So
mhm.
then it sent us down this rabbit hole of like, what do we get from the French?
Mm.
And I was stumped at first, but being the foodie, the culinarian, if you will, from a previous life, they only I don't want to say the only thing, but one of the things that France gives us is the standard for all modern cuisine, right? For classic French preparation of meats, vegetables, sauces, stocks, soups, all of the foundational pieces. Oh, excuse me. In cuisine come from France, and they're still known for that. But outside of that, I was at a loss. I was at a loss.
Yeah, I don't think they've given much more to me other than the Pink Panther movie, which wasn't even from them. So they
Yeah,
probably actually more or less hate that movie than anything.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know if I would chalk that up as like in the win column, or like if we were pro and con in France deliverables right now, Pink Panther's gonna go in the con boat for me. But that's
Listen,
me.
dude, you can't love Steve Martin and hate the Pink Panther.
Oh, I'll listen. Everybody makes mistakes. Steve Martin is no exception to that.
Oh no,
Okay.
dude, that's peak Steve Martin for me, bro.
Oh.
No, not really. But no, I do. I mean, I don't know much about culinary arts or anything like that, but I do remember whenever I was reading what's his name, Anthony Bourdain's book last year. Isn't that when we read it?
Kitchen Confidential.
Yeah, he talks a lot about the French kitchens and how they pretty much paved the way for how everything is like prepped and everything's done in like a modern day kitchen these days. So
Correct. The
I thank you
hierarchy.
very much for that.
Yeah, the hierarchy is established that way. How you go about piecing things together, how you build flavors. It's a little bit of a misnomer. Like, there's no, I mean, obviously, people have been eating food forever and preparing food forever from every culture, right? But I think I don't want to say commercializing it, but like converting it to an offering as a service is where the French excelled.
Hmm. Maybe the French are just really stingy with their knowledges. Maybe that's why they
That
haven't given the rest of the world a lot of things. Maybe they're keeping it to themselves.
that could be, but they also seem, man. Now we are really diving into this. They also seem too uppity to not take
Okay.
credit for something. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm saying like there's no way they could be that humbled. You know,
Oh,
like I could
yes,
see
that was
some
me. That was
cultures.
us. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Like they would be like,
That
"Hey
was
guys,
us.
look, we found this out," and we would be like, "No, somebody else did that," and they would be like, "No, no, 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 no. Actually, we found it out." I don't know anything about the French, as I said at the beginning of this conversation, but that's how I assume. That's the way they come off. Let me put it that way.
That's the way they're portrayed in movies, right? Like European Vacation.
Oh yeah,
Probably a very very valid representation of the French. How it is.
I c- I can only
Just
imagine that
as
not a single stereotype was played into during the filming of that movie.
just as the Griswold family is the very very accurate representation of the modern American family.
You know, you say that, but like, not that far off. Aside
That's
from
why I
maybe
know.
a collection of his odd idiosyncrasies, I would say probably fairly accurate.
I'm not exaggerating about the Griswold family, but I am
Oh,
exaggerating about how they portray the French for sure.
yeah. Well, we think we're not for sure.
I don't know though, man. It, they're bringing us good food, so they're doing something right.
Yeah. Well, you say that, but then there's also like some of the classic, and again, that was from a different time because they wrote the book, right? They started it from scratch. They invented it from nothing. Um, But some of the stuff they were putting out, oh man, like the aspics and the teriyaki, they're like, hey, we like this meat, but we kind of want to grind it up, put it in this casserole dish, and fill it full of fat, and we'll just slice it and eat it like lunch meat. And I'm like, I'm gonna sit out on this one. You know what I mean? And they're like, no,
Yeah,
no, we'll make it a delicacy. And I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know.
They're just out here like salting snails too. You know what I mean?
Uh yeah. So on the salting of the snails,
Well, I mean,
what
not like murdering. Well, I mean, they do murder them, but they salt them afterwards. To eat them.
Yeah, because here's the thing. Immediately I was like, no, we as that's an American thing to find, which is terrible, but to find a small snail about his business and
Minding his
just
own
salt
business.
him so he dies. That's what I thought you meant. The
And you
French
know what's horrible about that too is like that when you think of like worst deaths, right? Think about like some of the worst ways you could die. You think like catching on fire. You think like getting stuck in some
drowning or
place where you
something.
can't move or like drowning or something. But you never think of being dried up with salt.
Listen, I don't live in a world where
That's horrible. Oh god.
I mean, I guess we do it to ourselves by dehydrating ourselves, but can you imagine if like instead of one day it raining, it just salted and we were like, "Oh my God, I was out in it."
Instead
You
of
know?
like hail, it was just chunks of salt.
Yeah, and then they're
You're
just
just
like, "Hey,
trying to get back inside, but you can't.
did you hear what happened to Dave?" Yeah, salted.
Oh man.
Loved that guy.
Mm.
But yes, so they are salting in a good way
Well, I mean,
snails. It's not like mass snail murder they're committing.
it's not like genocide or whatever.
Yeah, but so hold on real quick. Let's back up for a second. I wish I knew the answer to this, and this might be the first Google of the episode, but maybe it's slugs that we would put the salt on. What's the
No, you do it to
is a
snails too.
is a slug just a homeless snail? What is that?
See, now we're asking the right questions here.
See, because you know how like a hermit crab, they can like change shells. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
But
I think
is
slugs and snails are different species, but uh slugs
bro,
definitely aren't homeless.
they got to be in the same. Oh
They're
well,
in the
are
same
they
like
though?
they're in the
They're
same
just
probably
they're
like
just not
species family.
they're just not equipped. I both of us have the how
Yeah.
refreshing is that belch?
It is.
I'm
It's
listen.
one of the
I'm
ones
gonna
that
go.
like burns a little bit.
Oh yeah, I'm Googling this and I literally typed in slug versus snail. And right as soon as I hit enter, I was like, this could return some really sketchy things.
Good.
Um,
Or we could get an epic battle on our hands. Some kind of like sweet wrestling match, you know?
yeah, so listen, yeah, I agree. Yeah, I just thought about it like some like comic book version of WWE, but it's just
It's
just
like an adult
ripped
swim
ass slug.
it's an
Yeah.
adult swim cartoon.
Um,
Mhm. The snail comes
wow.
out. They're doing like a presser before, and the snail comes out talking shit about how you don't even have a home. You're
Okay,
homeless, bro. What are you fighting for? I got a family.
I'm literally hard as a rock, and he's just got the shell on. Because here's the thing: the only significant morphological difference between the slug and the snail is the snail's conspicuous shell. This shell is large enough for the snail to completely retract for defense, but they are both gastropod mollusks. One lacks a shell, one does not.
The
Or
the
actually, slugs at a period of time can have a semi exoskeleton like um, internal shell, a small internal shell. But they're basically made up of the same stuff. It's just one has an obvious shell and one doesn't. So one is carrying around a constant tent and or RV it can protect itself in. The rest are just rolling the dice with life daily.
just just free balling all day,
Yeah,
every day.
a lot less defense against the salt darts. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. That's for sure because that's how immediately if it was an adult swim cartoon of them wrestling, that's how it ends.
Oh
Somebody
yeah,
pours salt in the arena. You know that's what happens.
100%. Um, Yeah, I was also thinking maybe potentially like at some point somebody, you know how like it's champagne bottles are like celebrating, they bust one open, but it's full of salt, and then everybody just dissolves into a sludge.
Or the fight,
Um,
they're like talking this fight up or whatever, and they get in there and they're both just moving so slow that it's getting annoying. And instead of throwing tomatoes at them or whatever, they throw salt at them. The crowd.
one last thing, and then we can get off the topic. But I would love to do a comparison of like how long does it take? Like if I salted both of them at the same time, same amount of salt,
Now,
which which one's
we
gonna go
I
first?
think we have to consider size here. We need
No.
to, is this going to be a straight up same quantity, same amount of salt, or is it going to be same per body fat?
Listen, same size, same everything. One's got a shell, one has no shell. Who's getting gummy first is basically where I'm going with that.
I
It's
think
an
I'm
experiment.
I think I'm taking the snails getting gummy first.
100%. No, no, the snail? I'm going to say the slug. He has no outer covering.
So they're the same exact size, same fatness
Yeah, first off,
or
fatness? I don't even
thickness.
know if that's something
Thickness.
that
Let's
you
say
can. Okay.
thickness.
Yeah,
Thickness.
what's the BMI of the snail versus the BMI of
Listen,
the slug?
listen, I'm just saying because when I think of a snail, I think of the little bitty snails that we got here. You know what I mean?
Dude, they're all the same size.
I've
Like
seen
okay,
some big slugs, bro.
I mean, I've seen some big slugs, but I've seen some pretty big. Okay, I'm glad we came full circle because I'm trying to get us back on track here. Like, think about the French, right? They're salting big slugs. I mean, big snails. Those are big. Those are
Well, I don't know. I've
huge.
never been.
Oh my, dude, have you never had snails like the
No, I've
escargot
never.
and stuff?
No, no, no. I've never had escargot.
Oh, well, first off, the tea is just along
Stupid
for the
American.
ride.
Stupid American.
Okay, so listen, everybody's like, oh, I'm not gonna say they're phenomenal. To me, here's the issue with them. Um, I love mushrooms, but there's certain mushrooms that are a little too earthy, a little too
Hmm.
umami-ish, okay? And then I don't like beets for that same exact reason. No matter what you do, it tastes like dirt, okay? And certain escargot, regardless of how much butter, garlic, you're using to prep them, even if you're like pre-poaching them or something like that, they have too much earthiness to them. So I'm not going to say that like they're gross because they're not, but it's always a roll of the dice for me, unless I know from a trusted place they're good. Okay,
Yeah.
and then all consistency is always there's a potential for them to be rubbery, right? But then sometimes they can, because you like scallops, right?
Yeah, I mean, I like scallops.
Okay,
I
well,
mean,
first off,
they're not like my favorite thing, but I like them.
okay, well, I was under the impression before this encounter that like people that like there was no in between. People are like, no, I don't do scallops, or people are like, holy shit, scallops are the jazz. You know what I mean? But apparently,
No,
you're the outlier there
no, no.
because you'll
I
eat
mean,
them, but they're
they're
not.
good, but like I don't want to order them. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
Like if someone else orders them, then yes, I'm gonna have some.
Well, back to my okay. So I am the opposite. Like I will not always order them, but like man, a good scallop is worth it, right? I'll take the journey for a good scallop. So what I was getting at was I think that sometimes in preparation they can get rubbery, but I've also had them where they're just the tender texture of like a medium scallop and you're just like, my lord, how can this get any better?
Mm.
But they can also be too earthy. And
So,
that's why the French are salting them.
so it's probably just because it probably depends on where you're getting them from, right? I would imagine. Or
Yeah, and
I mean, it depends on a lot of. It's kind of like oysters in that sense too.
yeah, I'm sure there's seasonality to snails too, I guess.
Hey
Um,
man, I don't know. These are questions that I'm trying to,
listen,
you're the
they're
culinary
they're
guy. I figured you'd know.
they're they're salting them. It's the right preparation. I'm sure there is some seasonal differences. Um, I don't want them too earthy, and I want the texture to be right. But I'm not going to sit here and go. It's kind of one of those fad things where you're like, "Oh, have you ever had escargot because you're eating a snail?" Like I don't treat them like that. You either like them or you don't. And for those reasons, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't.
Well, I would probably have escargot if they put it on the buffet.
We went down there to that all-you-could-eat buffet, and they was covered in that
You
escargot.
you ever been to that Golden Corral over yonder? Well, you know that buffet.
The buffet. Um,
They got
which
this new
bring,
thing over there called that escargot.
and I went over there and got me some. I'm gonna tell you. Um, I just, I don't know. So they're not committing mass genocide of snails. They're salting those that they consume. So
Yeah,
they gave us that as well.
giving us some good cuisine. They've given us some good soccer the past two World Cups, so I appreciate them for that as well.
Yeah, the fact that
They've
so
given us
so
the
there
Eiffel Tower, right? That's in France, isn't it?
yeah, that is in
In
France.
Paris.
Also, was it them or Italy that gifted us the Statue of Liberty?
Ooh, maybe it was France.
Son of a gun. We really should have looked this up because do you realize how idiotic that we sound right now?
Listen,
That we
man,
don't know this?
I know a lot of Texas history because we're from
Hey,
Texas.
that is right. And
Don't know a
actually,
lot of
that's
United
covering.
States history.
Okay, so let's see. Statue of Liberty. Look at this. I know we've talked about this before and we've discussed this before, but I binged it instead of going to Google
Oh my
first, and I don't
gosh.
even know what the fuck the answer is to that question because Bing gave it to me. Trash.
Just the
Um,
worst, absolute worst.
I
It's like
guarantee you,
the difference between an Android and an iPhone.
I guarantee you, I'm gonna type. I haven't yet. I'm gonna type in Statue of Liberty into Google, and I bet you, I will not have to move a mouse, click anything, and it's gonna tell me right up fucking front that it was a gift from whomever. Okay. Oh, here we go. Ready? Um, First page. Didn't even scroll down. Didn't click nothing. The copper statue, a gift from the people of France,
Look at that. Google for
was
the
des-
win.
was designed by French sculptor Frederic Auguste Bartholdi, and its metal framework was built by Gustave Eiffel.
So now they've given us two gifts, or
Yes,
three if you count the cuisine. They've given us the Statue of Liberty, the
yes,
food or the system of making food, and
and
the Kronenbourg
1664.
1664.
Why? So they are batting 1,000 as far as
That
I'm concerned. I
yes,
wasn't expecting to come out of this giving much credit to France, but I will give them those three things.
yes, me too.
I don't want to get off topic here, but there's one other thing that I do want to bring up. So earlier when we were talking about the buffet and the escargots, something dawned on me. So being as it's overseas, right? And I don't know where it was invented. Which I do have one here. I don't know where it was invented, but like the metal crown, right, that
Mm,
goes on the actual bottle itself. Like there's some pop tops, and then there's a lot of twist offs. I don't even know if they do twist offs overseas, but they might. Anyways,
don't know.
there's
If you
pop
don't, you
tops.
should.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess yeah, everyone's entitled to the convenience of that. Um, but there's pop tops and there's twist offs, okay? And here's what I'm gonna say, and I'm gonna try not to be offensive, but it's fairly obvious, okay?
Okay.
So I'm not saying that the beverage inside is dictated by whether you have a pop top or a twist off. I don't want to go that far. But I will say this, okay? If you're popping the top off the beer, you're getting something like a 1664, right? 200, I don't know, you can do the math, 300 years, I don't know. All of this history, the champagne of hops, just refreshing, crisp, citrusy, Pilsner goodness, okay? And if you're screwing the top off the bottle, eh, could be a high life. You know what I'm saying?
It could be.
So I'm
Or
just saying.
isn't Shiner twist off or are they pop off?
Shiner is twist off, and Shiner is a good beer. So I'm saying it's not always 100%, but like the case in point that I'm trying to make is like I feel like beers that you open. Okay, let me try to define it like this. We're from East Texas, okay,
Hmm.
and we are I know the whole episode we've been cutting ourselves down. We're fairly intelligent individuals, okay, but
Yeah.
if you were to hear us from a distance,
You
you're gonna
wouldn't think
write
so,
off.
brother.
Exactly,
You would
okay.
not
You're gonna
think
be like.
so.
You're gonna be like, unless he's working a shovel or a broom, this dude isn't gonna help me. That's
No, that,
essentially what you're gonna think, right?
yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and that's fine. Right? That's fine. That's not the truth, but that's the way that we're perceived from a distance because of the way we sound. IQ is
Mhm.
directly relative to the draw that comes from our face gaping hole. Okay, and that's the way I feel about twist top versus pop offs, right? Because you're right. You could twist it off and you get a shiner in there and you're like, oh, that's delicious. But you could also twist it off and you get high life, you know?
Yeah. That's fair.
Whereas I'm also sure too, with a pop top, you can pop the top and you get 1664. Or you could pop the top and you get something that is, you know, overseas equivalent to High Life, which is I know we already compared 1664 to that, but what I'm saying is you could get their shit
Well,
bottom of the barrel, run of the mill,
listen, to
pop
be
top
fair,
too.
that comparison with the champagne was only because Miller Lite is quoted as the champagne of beers when it absolutely should not be. Let's be real with
100%.
ourselves. It was just
100%.
a word comparison.
The point I'm trying to make is that stereotypically and sometimes justifiably, a pop top is classier and a better beverage than a twist off. But you can't discredit a twist off beer, is what I'm trying to say.
There's an image. There's an image associated with a pop top that there's
Right.
not with a twist off. I can see that like when you go to a bar. Say you go out, meet a nice lady friend or guy
Yeah.
friend, whatever way you swing. Meet a
Yep.
partner friend, whatever you want to say. Anyways, you order a beer and it's a pop off. How much cooler is it when the bartender comes over to you and pops it off for you instead of just twisting it off for you?
100%. I will say this, two things. Let's say you're having a function at your house, okay? You're having people over from work, or maybe you're having house guests over for the first time. You're out and about, this is very rarely going to be the case, but you're out and about, you're grabbing beers for everybody to enjoy when they get back to the house for the event. Um, and you have the choice between a pop top and a twist off, and you don't know the brand of beers. Okay. You're probably going to choose those pop tops, aren't you? You are.
If
You're going
there's
to
a
choose them.
bottle opener, yes.
100%. It's just like if for some reason I were looking for someone to, in the heat of the moment, save my life, I wouldn't want them to sound like me. I would want them to sound like they were from somewhere else. I'm
Yes.
just saying, like that's facts.
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's a lot of intelligent people that are from Texas. Some of the smartest, I would assume, I have to in the world. But sometimes I'm like, I'm gonna go with the other accent, not the one that sounds closest to where I'm from. Okay.
Well, I mean it's like you said, right? Like because I'm the same way. Like if I'm going in to like see my doctor or something, I don't want them to have the same or like a southern twang, like like a
Yeah.
horrible southern twang. But like, uh, but if I was like going to get my truck worked on,
Oh yeah.
I
100%.
I know it's gonna get done right. You know what I mean?
That is very
Like
true.
I just in my head, somebody with a southern accent knows how to put a truck back together, but don't necessarily know how to put a human back together. You know what I mean?
I agree.
And
I
that's I
agree.
mean I'm could be totally wrong with that. Obviously, there's people that have that southern accent that are incredibly smart and can put a human back together, but in your head, you have
Also,
a
also
vision of
too,
things.
I think I think it's what you're going after too, because like, first off, I don't know if they have the, I don't want to say technology, but I don't know if they have the capability of having twist offs overseas. Um, so all of their beers are a pop top, so you get quality versus not quality with the same type of top.
I think
Um,
really quickly, I think they probably have the ability to do it. I mean, I
I'm
wonder.
not belittling them. I'm
No,
just
no, no.
saying.
I'm like I wonder if there's a. I wonder if there's a freshness like but like difference between a twist off and a pop off. Because I feel
I don't.
like I feel it's because a twist off's fairly easy to get off, right? So it probably isn't sealed as well. I would think.
Also, too,
I mean, it's safely sealed, but it's probably not as good. That's what I'm
I'm
saying.
sure I'm sure Kronenbourg, Borg, whatever, especially for the 1664, they're probably not finishing. It's mass produced. Like I like it, but it's mass produced, right? So like any other American beer.
Now it is.
Yeah, now it is. Yeah, for that first 200 years, old boy was just
Well,
rocking and rolling. But
I got another year landmark, but you can keep going first.
okay,
I'll
we'll
head out.
get back into that. But so it's mass produced now, so they're definitely not finishing anything in the bottle, but there are certain things that, they finish the rest of their life, they carbonate in the bottle, right? Um
Hmm.
and so maybe they do need that additional extra seal versus a twist off. I don't know. And also too, if you think about beers in this, like you're not getting even craft beers in the States aren't coming with a twist off. You know what I'm saying? It's basically your mass produced stuff where it's finished when it's bottled because it's being consumed in mass quantities by the, even something like Shiner,
Yeah.
like on the grand scheme of things, like people are drinking truckloads of that a night. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm just. I mean, for no fault of its own or anything, just wonder if a twist off is not as sealed because it just
Well,
seems like it wouldn't be. I I
you know what?
liked I like I said I love Shiner, so it's nothing against the idea of it. I just am curious.
One other thing I would say is,
If there's a scientist that listens that can answer that, I'd like to know.
I don't know how many are in our audience of three, but so the also too though the recycling programs, probably not in the States, but like the recycling programs are drastically different in other countries too, because like they will physically reuse the bottle. Like when we talk about recycling in the States,
It's like
we're
throw it
talking
in a
about
machine and
and crushing it
repurpose. Yeah.
and remaking the bottle. Like in some countries, I'm not saying Kronenbourg 1664 is one of them, but like they physically refill the bottle. And so I'm sure. having something that can be reused. I know this is a specific shape, but having something that can be reused by multiple different avenues in its current state versus, a twist off situation. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah, because you can just
Yeah.
yeah. I get what you mean. Maybe that is. I don't know.
I don't know if it necessarily happens with beers as much, but like in Mexico, they do it a lot with their sodas. Like, and it's weird to me because you'll see like a soda bottle and you're like, oh, that's definitely not the shape of a Coke bottle, but it's full of Coke, you know? And it's just because that's the way their recycling process is, and they're full crowned, not twist off crowned.
Yeah. Well, that's the difference between a American Coke and a Mexican Coke, though.
No, no, no. The biggest difference is one uses real cane sugar and one uses high
Uh,
fructose corn syrup.
are they using cane sugar or are they using cocaine? Let's be honest with ourselves. Because
No,
Mex because Mexican Coke is delicious.
no cocaine, but definitely sugar. And in fact, a lot of the sugar in the states is manufactured for beverages outside of the states. A large
That's
portion.
fine. We don't need any
Yeah.
more sugar than what we consume already. So
We don't, but I don't know if
we
again
also
we
don't
don't
need
have
all the
yeah.
high fructose corn syrup that we consume. So
Exactly. I don't know if we have time for that argument today, but
no.
anyways, I'm very excited, and I don't want to give a teaser to anything that we have coming up, but I'm very excited that we got to enjoy this one for sure, because these are my standard for beers. Like this is what like I love all beers, and with some preference towards certain ones, but these are my styles of beer. Like this is what I
Yes.
want when I want a beer.
This is very much a perfect example of a beer, honestly. Just a standard, delicious, refreshing, sit around, hang out beer.
These are also, though, nothing you can hide from. Dude, you drink one of these puppies and you walk into a room and people are like, oh my God, what happened in here? And you're like, oh, I drank a 1664 4 hours ago. And they're like, well, I can still smell it.
Yeah. It's more like I drank one like 4 days ago. And they
Yeah.
walk in and they're like, "Oh God, did you leave the
Jesus.
bottle out?" No, I threw it out that night.
Jesus Christ, what died and then you sprinkled lemons on it a day later? And I'm like, ah, 64, my friend. That's what that is.
Do you have a pet skunk? What
Did
is
you just
that?
burp? Did you just burp? Yeah, like a week ago. That kind of thing.
Did you just burp? Yeah, a week ago.
But because they linger, they stick to all the
But it's
surfaces
like,
in your mouth.
that would not be my. It'd be like, "Hey, did you just burp?" No, I don't think I've burped.
I mean,
I don't think I've
here's
burped in like a week. First of all, I would be very concerned for my life if I hadn't burped in a week.
well, I would say hard pressed to actually know when I had burped last. That's really the most concerning part. If somebody asked me, when did you like not did you burp, but when did you last burp? I can't honestly answer that question. Who
Four
knows
minutes
exactly
ago.
when they last? I mean, well, I can right now, but if like I woke up and somebody was like, "Hey, when's the last time you burped?" I'd be like, "Huh? I don't know."
No, you don't burp after like you eat.
I mean, yeah, maybe sometimes, but I don't necessarily keep track of them. It's a bodily function that's just happening.
Yeah, but you have those good ones.
Well, 100%, and this beverage is definitely inducing more than my, I
Just open the
guess.
front door and just come in. Hey man, what's up? Oh God.
I'm telling you, so that's how you know, like these are not something that you can just nonchalantly. I would tell you this: this is not a beer for those that are trying to, as kids, and this is probably a lot of kids overseas, maybe in France. It's probably a lot of their first beer. They like snag a few off the old man. They sneak behind the
Mm,
shed. They're like, we're gonna indulge. You can't sneak these.
no.
You can't.
You wake up the next day and your dad knows. Not only because he
Yeah.
has a count of how many beers he had left of the 1664, because you're not gonna forget about these.
Mm-mm.
Okay. So not only does he have the count, but he's gonna smell it on you when you wake up, no matter how much you brush your teeth.
Well, and even if he doesn't catch you that particular day, like 4 days later, you guys are going to be working out in the field doing something, and he's going to
Sweating.
smell your sweat and go, "Were you drinking 1664?"
I knew I had misplaced a couple. I thought I had too many that night.
Yeah. Um, which I think that there's something to be said about that. I think that's a proud moment. I think
It's
that's prideful. Well,
I
okay,
mean, you know, man,
listen.
because like when I eat pizza, you know, my and I sweat,
Oh
it
yeah,
smells like grease and pepperoni and cheese, and I don't like that. So
yeah, you're right.
that's
You're right.
definitely not something to be like. You don't want to eat pizza and then go to the gym because then everybody at the gym's gonna know that you were eating pizza.
That's 100% sure.
You know what I mean? You got to work out at home for the next couple days if you're gonna eat pizza,
Also, I can assure you
especially the
firmly
older you get.
that in 1664 they weren't worried about a good quality beverage interfering with social events because of odors.
Stench,
Okay?
yeah.
No, definitely not on their radar.
Not at all. In fact, this probably made you smell better back then. Let's be real.
They were like, I met this girl, you're not going to believe this. Smelled exactly like a 1664.
No,
Which, you
bro.
know what?
It's
Here's
like
the thing. Here's the
it's like when your friends ask you what you're wearing, right? Like what cologne you're wearing or whatever. That's right. Wait, man, bro, I met this chick, bro. Oh, what'd she have on, man? 1664, bro. You wouldn't believe it.
What is that smell? 1664. The horses stopped short and one fell over in the wagon. Mm.
Mm. Yeah.
On that one on that topic, one more comment. Here's the thing. Like we're joking about it, but also I think even nowadays, let's say right now, if like a bunch of dudes are hanging out and they were like, dude, you met her, like, like you're talking this and that, and you're like, so like what was going on? Like give me details. And she did smell like a 1664. Even today, I think a guy would go, bro, she smelled like beer. And not one person in that situation would go,
Ugh.
oh, so you were turned off? No, no, no. Immediately they'd be like, dude, that's cool. So like how did it go?
What, you know, I'd be like, well, did she buy you one or what, you know?
Yeah. There would be
Did
no
you buy
hard
her one?
feelings about it.
No.
But
Is it
I guess that's the male mentality versus the female. So let's rewind. Maybe in 1664, a female could meet a male and she could go, he smelled like 1664. And that's a relief to her because he didn't smell like him. You know what I mean?
yeah. Didn't smell like ass. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I,
1664 ass. Everything was
which
hot.
yeah. Yeah, it was indeed. You can't get away with that these days though. No. I don't think a girl's going out meeting with a guy and coming back and being like, "Hey ladies, listen. Met this guy. He's really awesome. He's funny as hell. Got a great personality, good looking, but he smelled like 1664." you know,
And
you know
and
what I mean?
whether it was the year or the beer, she's still gonna strike out in that situation.
Yeah, there would be like, because a couple of them wouldn't know what it meant. You know what I mean? Probably most of them wouldn't. Maybe. I
Yeah.
mean, I wouldn't have known before this past weekend. So,
It's there's like I can't even think of how small the sub sample set of females would be that are okay with that. It's such a small amount that I can't even consider it a sample of the larger population. There are maybe three females on this planet probably that are like, ooh, smelled like 1664. And
yeah.
here's the thing. The other two, when one that comes out of one's mouth, the other two are her girlfriends, and so that's only happening one time ever. You
yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And the funny thing is, I didn't even drink it. I just doused my fingers in it.
I
Put it
just
on the
rubbed the
neck.
top of the cap and just right on the neck
You
because
gotta
I
do
knew
both sides of the neck, baby. You know what I mean?
I was targeting that one chick. I don't know why it is also that I just picture this chick wearing leather and being some part of a biker gang. I'm not stereotyping, but that's the demographic that's going to be okay with that.
That's pretty. That's pretty. That's pretty stereotypical, bro.
I mean, it is, but it's very accurate. You know, it is. You thought about it, and you're like, that checks out.
You're not wrong at all. I would think the same thing. All right, yeah. So the last
Okay, so,
year thing that I had here, I had one
oh
more
yeah,
before we went on the rant.
sorry, it
Um,
happens.
so after they introduced the Strisselspalt hops in 1885, nothing else really happened until 1952. And this is where I said earlier that the French maybe just are being stingy with their
Okay.
information, and maybe that's why they haven't given us a lot. Because that's the first time that it was brought to Britain.
In 1952.
1952. It's brought into Britain for the first time ahead of celebrations for the coronation. Get ready for this, of Queen Elizabeth II
Oh my God.
in 1953 to the throne of the United Kingdom.
So I wonder then,
And then this led to it being imported to 68 other countries around the world.
wow. So all of this time, like we can give France the credit they deserve for making it, but maybe it was Queen E that was getting it out there.
You know, she
If it, if
tasted it
it
at the coronation and was like, the world has to have this.
yeah.
And you know
Also,
what? Now I take back any rude thing that is ever said about her. That I mean I didn't really ever say anything bad about her, but
yeah, I was like,
eh,
golly, you got a
eh,
laundry list?
no,
Jesus
no,
Christ, dude.
I meant more or less any. I take back for what other people may have said about her. That's what I meant to say. But yeah, her
Coronation is what did it, huh?
yeah, her coronation is what brought it to the rest of the world. So
Dude, that is
man,
crazy. Also,
R.I.P.
so
the
so you're
Queen.
telling, oh yeah, but I mean, hey,
I
I'll put
mean,
a.
did you know did some questionable things, but brought us the 1664.
I mean, 1664 to 1953. You said?
Yeah, well, this says it's the headline says 1952, but the coronation was in 1953, so very confused about that.
Okay,
But
that's fine. Listen, I just assumed news wasn't that great back then. Can you imagine? Like now, like there's a bit, like nowadays there's a huge difference between like was that posted 2 hours? Think about this real quick. When you Google somebody's death right now,
mm,
and Google pulls up articles, you're like, oh my God, that was from 3 hours ago. Like what, you know what I mean? That's what
yeah,
you say in your mind. You're like, oh, that's from 3 hours ago. I need a newer article. That's what you say.
yeah,
Back then you were like, yeah, I mean, that was like 3 months ago. That's close enough.
yeah,
You know?
that's probably accurate. Hmm.
Yeah, 1953. I
Oh
mean,
my
I guess.
god, yeah. Oh my god, the president's in the hospital 3 months ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, I wonder how he's doing.
I'm telling you, dude. It's so anyways, 52, 53 doesn't matter. The point of the story is made in 1664, moves to Kronenbourg in when did you say? 200 years
Uh,
later? 18 something.
1850. Yeah,
1850. So 100 years later, plus two or three, give or take,
yeah, is when
is
it
when
the
anyone
rest of the
else
world.
aside from France gets it.
Yes, that's wild.
It's absolutely crazy.
Especially
But
considering how delicious it is, man.
yes, but also too, I think we underestimate the saturation of absolutely amazing beverages that are in Europe
Yeah, and probably especially in France, if we're being
and
honest.
England and
Oh,
England,
France,
right?
England, Germany, they all kind of
Yeah.
I imagine Portugal and Spain as well.
I mean, there's front runners clearly, like the Czech Republic,
Italy.
Germany, Belgium. Like there, yeah. I mean, if you want to go like wines and spirits and all that stuff,
Well, yeah.
there's front runners everywhere. But like, there's zero shortage of amazing, lengthy, tried and true beers, wines, spirits, and beverages, even non-alcoholic beverages that exist there. It's the old world, after all.
Yeah.
Um,
It's where the
so
first guy was brave enough to try it, man.
can you
Male
can
or
you
woman.
imagine?
It was probably a woman, honestly.
She was like, he wants me to throw this away. He's up in his feelings about it.
He just
And
doesn't
I'm
get
just
it.
gonna I'm just gonna have a nip, and then oh man, we're stepping off deep. Like the next 3 days were amazing, and this guy was like, I don't know what was in that, but we need to make more of it, and then just kept
Yeah.
going.
Yeah. You took that a different way I was going, but that's cool.
Oh,
That's cool.
good. No, I was talking about keeping the sanity of the relationship, which I'll just shove that foot further down my
It's
in
probably
my mouth.
it's probably more like these days have been great. Give me whatever you're having.
Yeah.
Um, all right, let's get into the rating. What we're giving this thing real quick. Um, I can start with mine like I usually do. I'm gonna give it a perfect 6 on entry. I think it's beautiful when it enters my mouth. You know. Aftertaste, I'm gonna give it a 5. Not really for any other reason than other than I'm hoping that something else could be better.
Mhm.
Uh, Body, giving it a 5 as well. We didn't pour this one, but bottle and the see through of it on the color, I'm gonna give it a 6. Looks to
I
be a
assure you.
perfect. Looks to
I
be a
assure
perfect.
you, it's what you want.
Okay, perfect bitterness. I'm giving it a 5 again for no other reason than I'm hoping something might be better. Uh, Acidity, I'll actually give that a 6 as well. It's delicious. Um, Perfect mixture of flavors, fruitiness that's in there or whatever. And the fizz, man, we're giving it another 6. I think we got burps right off the first sip until the end of the episode here. So I apologize if I left any burps in there for to be heard. I'm gonna be honest, I don't edit the burps out. I'm just saying if there's a plethora of them this episode, I apologize.
Part of the experience. I mean, unless it were like interfering with just, the fluidness of conversation, which I guess
That
that's what a burp does anyway. So yeah, leave them in.
yeah.
Um, I'm kind of I don't want to say cheating, but I'm cheating a bit because I know what my favorite of these are, right? And we've talked about this over and over and over, but this is basically us in like evaluating or interpreting this style beer versus all of the other styles. Okay. And so for me, I know what my favorite is. And I kind of said that at the beginning that this is probably 3 or 4 on that list. But at entry, I have a 5, just because there's one that I like more. Aftertaste, I have a 4, only because I think what I experienced at entry very quickly becomes aftertaste with the 1664 compared to some other pilsners. So I'm giving it a 4. Body, I've got a 5. It's great. Nothing to laugh at. Color, I have a 5. We didn't pour it, but it's right where it should be. Bitterness, I have a 5, only because there happens to be one better. Acidity, I have a 5. Fizz, I do have it at a 6. And here's why. Because if there's anything that this one does compared to what I consider to be my favorite. We're gonna have to like whenever we do the history of beer episode where we're just like reading and commentating over the top, and we get to pick our beers. I'll bring in my favorite pilsner, but um, it doesn't quite have the response to consumption delivering Burt like 1664 does. Right. So it
Okay.
has the upper hand there. But overall that gives it a 35 in regards to, stereotypical pilsners.
Yeah. All right. So we got a 39 from me overall and a 35 from you. That's obviously the highest rated one. Again, this scale is based on our expectation of what a pilsner should be.
Correct.
Although this also is a very highly rated beer in my mind. This is a definitely buy if you see it. Definitely will be buying it again, especially during hot months. I think spring and summertime for me.
Which
Drinking
is
it
which is
outside.
why which is why today I get to ask the question. Don't you allude before I get to ask, where do you see yourself drinking this beer? Where does it fit if you're going to
Mm.
consume it?
I'll be real. And at first, this is gonna seem like, at least to me, if I was listening to it, it would be like, really, this is this kind of beer. This is a boat beer for me, dude. Straight up. Like normally, when you think of everybody drinks like Bud Light, like a really light beer, like a Miller Light or a Bud Light or something like that on the boat. I hate Bud Light. mainly because I overdrink it. But yeah, this is like not like a activity boat beer, but like a chilling on the boat beer. You know, you go somewhere, you park, you're sitting in the water, just hanging out, not doing anything, just relaxing and sitting in the sun.
I okay, so I agree in the fact that I like it at a warmer temperature. I'll drink it whenever. It's great when it's out like in the snow. I've drank many of them in the snow and it's super ice cold, but I do like it more when it's warm. But to me,
Was the
it's
sun out
a
when you were in the snow?
no, it's at nighttime. We were
Oh,
like around
okay.
always
Yeah.
usually at night
I
around that. I mean,
digress
God,
then. I digress.
golly, who's drinking during the day? Anyway, but a lot of times.
I am on a boat.
So yeah, on a boat for sure. For me, it's a it essentially is the punctuation for the day. That's what I think about when I drink this beer. Whether you still have a question to be answered, you're gonna use this. You're gonna stop by a pub or stop by a bar or stop by a buddy's house, grab one out of the fridge, or you'll sit around a couple of pints, or you'll sit around some bottles, and you'll question what you have left for the day because you're still concerned. Or you had a really great day. You're gonna invite some guys from work. You're gonna stop by, or maybe you're inviting people that you interact with in the world that you're in. You'll stop by some friends, grab a beer, and hell yeah, like we're done with the day. Or um, you will use it as a I have accomplished whatever. Like I did what I was supposed to do today. I'm hot, I'm sweaty if you're in that line of work, or I did all of these things, or I accomplished this. I'm gonna stop and cap my day off with this beer. It's a finisher for me. I can drink it casually, like on a boat. I do want it to be warm, but for me, it's 100%. The day's over, you're winding down, and that's how you punctuate your day.
A nightcap beer.
Yeah,
So instead of getting home and watching the Sunday night football, you're getting home and drinking you one of these bad boys.
100%. I will say this though. Now that I think back, my favorite, if you have an indoor fireplace, this is gonna seem weird. When I have an indoor fireplace, and like wood burning, and I'm really rocking and rolling, it's super ice cold outside, and you don't have the house like super warm because of central air and heat. Um, I crank a fire, and if I'm not doing like a whiskey, like an old fashioned or something like that, then I want this, and I want it in a glass, and I want it ice cold so that the room around me is filled with the fire heat, the wood heat, and then you're enjoying this. That's
Mm.
the only time that I really like it when it's cold, unless we're outside and around a fire or something.
In a wood cabin.
I mean, I've never done it in a wood cabin, but yes, that would be extremely fitting.
Because that's what I picture when I picture a nice, warm interior wood burning fireplace, you know?
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's gotten to that time of the episode where I tell you to go follow us on socials on Twitter at Off the Tap Pod and on Instagram at Off the Tap Podcast. We also have a Facebook page. I don't know. It's just Off the Tap Podcast, I think, on Facebook. I'll have to double check that, but it's stuff is posting on there as well. So if you're on Facebook, you can do that. Yeah.
So if you find us on Facebook, let us know what it is. That would be extremely helpful.
Yep.
And I'll leave you with this: 1664 is the fury of the fizz.